Amen. I'm unprepared this morning. Okay, I completely forgot a joke last week. I can't believe you guys let me forget that I didn't give you a funny. So, I'm going to start off with one. Sunday school teacher was talking to her kids about honesty. And she asked them, do you know what happens to kids who don't put their money in the collection plate? Yes, ma'am, one boy shouted. They go to the movies. So that's a little funny. Okay, so not long ago I was talking to someone I know, and she told me that she didn't like where she was going to church. So she decided to move her family's church membership elsewhere. I asked for a reason, hoping that I could somehow communicate to her and kind of change her mind. Well, she responded, I'm tired of the evangelism outreach things that we're doing. We've been doing these things for years and years, and I don't see where it's doing any good. I think we should just send our money overseas. Well, I responded that we've seen a lot of things happen here locally from this evangelism. And yes, it is important that we send our money overseas, but it's also important that we keep our money here in our place. Well, I get tired of being asked to give all the time. But we discussed even further. And yet again, her reasoning changed. Finally, she says something to the fact, well, I don't know why I'm leaving. I just am. But it has nothing to do with anybody at the church. So we're going to talk about burdens today, and we're going to talk about being there for others. So in Matthew, some call the chapter 11 of Matthew the chapter for the contemporary church. As we talked about, Jesus asked earlier, to what can I compare this generation? They are like children sitting in a marketplace and calling out to others. We played the flute for you and you did not dance, and we sang a dirge for you and you did not mourn. In other words, Jesus is saying that we are fickle and restless. We're like children who can't respond positively to anything, so we end up playing nothing. We'd rather sit on the sidelines, uninvolved, to take God's kingdom seriously. At times, many of us do act like spoiled children, never satisfied but always complaining. It has been said that ours seems to be a restless, moody, unsatisfied generation of Christians. And it's sad that so much church hopping does take place. I'm guilty of church hopping in my church life in the last 25 years. In another United Methodist church, a man left it because he simply didn't like the new pastor. He found a new church, became very involved with his new church, took on leadership roles, filled a lot of vacuums and empty spaces that were going on. The people loved him, and he gave generously to this new church. After several years, the original church he was a member of, that pastor moved on. So this man came back to his original church. So he left his new church, never to be heard from again. This friend of mine relayed the shock of disappointment on him leaving. Another person said, I don't understand how he can just pack up and go and leave us. The church is your family, and you don't just leave your family. After some time, Jesus perhaps was a little bit weary from all the restless moaning of his followers. So he looks up to heaven and prays. The substance of his prayer offers thanksgiving to God that the basic core meanings of life are really simple, rooted in a childlike faith built on trust. And that trust according to Jesus is found where we cast ourselves restless lives on God's unchanging, faithful presence. I've seen the same car around Clarksburg here recently, but it wasn't the car that got my attention. It was the bumper sticker. The bumper sticker said, "Trust Jesus." That's all. That phrase has helped me here recently through a couple of difficult times. Trust Jesus. Trust Jesus. Trust Jesus. It is the most welcoming and encouraging invitation ever offered. Come to me, Jesus calls out, all you are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. A German tourist was once asked, what is the one thing that impresses you most about the United States? He answered, the fact that you are a tired people. You are all so tired. Isn't it a paradox that Americans, even those during these very difficult economic times, have had more leisure time than ever before? And yet we are all so weary that many of us can't face life, get involved, or even reach out to help others. Our prisons are filled to overflowing, but our society has little time for the rehab of the problem. So instead, we neatly stuff people into cages. Many folks are busy riding motorcycles, fishing, vacationing, golfing, whatever it is that they like to do for fun. Yet we're all always busy and tired. It has been said that a more affluent society has never existed. A healthier people has never lived. And a more tired race has probably never breathed. We can see the fruit of this in our society. Both mothers and fathers work so much to give the best for their families, and we come home at the end of the day tired and ill. The drugs we take accuse us of being exhausted and burdened. Did you know that it takes 51 million sleeping pills a night to put Americans to sleep? I'm on them. I take it. Okay, my mind is always going, and I need that little boost to get me to sleep. I believe the prophet Isaiah was speaking to people much like us when he said, have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the heavens and earth. He does not grow faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might he increases strength. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted. But they who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. We are to come to Jesus with our exhaustion and our weariness. Now the rest that Jesus promises is not the rest of inactivity. It is the rest which is made possible through the provisions of a new yoke. Jesus knows that we are restless. We look here and we look there for meaning, and without fail, we find ourselves exhausted in every search that does not include a personal connection with Jesus Christ. Viktor Frankl survived the horrors of Auschwitz and wrote a book that is now, even years after his death, still printed and reprinted. The book title is A Man's Search for Meaning. It's a story of courage and survival in which human beings came through to the other side of the Nazi madness with meaning. How? Simply put, he believed that the supreme need in every life is not for pleasure, or for power, but rather the highest need in every life is for meaning. All of us long for meaning that transcends our work, every success, and life itself. Jesus Christ invites us to find in him the energizing, vital meaning that life offers. And that discovery begins when we come to him, acknowledging that we are exhausted and empty from spiritual wanderlust that has taken us places rather than to a person. When I used to read this passage many years ago, I used to think that Jesus was talking about the yolk of an egg. I didn't know anything about yolks for animals back then. It's not just a word we use anymore. Suffice to say, the kind of yoke that Jesus is referring to is a wooden frame used to harness animals together so that they could pull a plow. Most of us know that Jesus and his earthly follower, his earthly father, were carpenters. And according to legend, there was a sign that hung outside their shop, which read, "Our yokes fit well." Today, we see that Jesus is no longer making yokes for animals, but for people. And Jesus' yokes still fit well. Jesus said that his yoke is easy. The underlying Greek word here means kind. A good yoke is one that is carefully shaped so that there will be little or no chafing on the shoulders. Jesus' yoke is designed to be kind to our shoulders, enabling us to carry the load more easily. In this sense, our burden will be light. And it has been suggested that when Jesus says, "Learn from me," he means more than just listen to my teaching. As Christ's disciples, we are not simply just pupils, but we are apprentices as well. We don't learn from Christ simply to think, but to do. This is the sense. The yoke of Christ is not just a yoke that Jesus put on us. It is the one that Jesus wears as well, so that we can be harnessed together with Jesus Christ. A yoke makes two oxen a team. Jesus is saying to you and to me this morning, become my teammate and learn how to pull a load by working beside me and watching how I do it. The heavy labor of life will seem lighter when you allow me to help you with it. How awesome is that? Jesus' yokes are tailor-made. They fit well because they're not hand-me-downs. They're especially made for each of us. God has amazing plans for our lives. And what a horrible, the most horrible shame to waste it. The yoke Christ wears with us is our calling in life. God has work for every one of us to do, things which, with only the help of Christ, we are qualified to do. It is God's divine plan for us. And when we carry out God's divine plan for us, we experience the peace, the joy, the freedom, which is called abundant life. Hundreds of years ago, Augustine tried on God's yoke for his life and remarked, "In God's will, it is our peace." A young dog was spinning around chasing its tail, and an older dog kind of wandered up to him and asked, "What are you doing?" The younger dog replied, "I'm chasing my tail. You see, happiness is in my tail. When it wags, I'm happy. When it drops, I'm sad. Happiness is in my tail. If I catch it, I'll always be happy." So again, the younger dog started running and spinning around, and he finally caught a hold of it. And he sank to the ground, and he was tired. The older dog then said, "You know, I used to chase my tail. But one day I found out that if I just went on about my business, happiness followed right behind." Jesus calls out to any and to all tail-chasing, happiness-seeking, worn-out people and promises you will find rest for your souls. When we follow Christ, we enroll in the school of Jesus and never really graduate, which is cool. The Christian journey is one in which we are lifelong apprentices or disciples of the one who loves us, all the way to the death of the cross. As we are yoked with Christ, we work with Christ for the saving of a lost and broken world. And there can be no greater meaning found in life than doing what God calls us to do. Jesus is the one who shows us the good way where the restless, the under-challenged, and the overburdened can find rest for their souls. And true happiness follows behind. Praise God. Amen.